Before N.W.A. came out, there was nobody out there doing gangster rap. We're the inventors of gangster rap music.
In 1989, the Federal Bureau of Investigation did something it had never done before. It sent a letter, not to a cartel, not to a terrorist cell, not to a foreign government, to 5 young men from one of the poorest zip codes in America. The message was simple: stop or face the consequences. They didn't stop. Instead, they framed the letter, hung it on the wall, and kept selling records by the millions. This is the story of how a group of kids from a 2.5 square mile city nobody outside Los Angeles could find on a map became public enemy #1 to the American government, and in the process rewrote the rules of music forever. This is how N.W.A. put Compton on the map. To understand N.W.A., you first have to understand the battlefield they came from. By the mid-1980s, Compton, California wasn't just struggling, it was drowning. Crack cocaine had ripped through South Los Angeles like wildfire. On some blocks, dealers were moving $100,000 of product a week. Money like that doesn't stay peaceful for long. The Crips and the Bloods carved the city into invisible borders, and stepping onto the wrong block could get you killed for wearing the wrong color. Shootouts weren't rare. They were routine. The Los Angeles Police Department responded the way it knew how, with force. Mass sweeps, mass arrests, a war on gangs that, for the young black men caught in the middle, often felt like a war on them, period. This was the air a generation of Compton teenagers breathed. Survival wasn't a metaphor, it was the daily assignment. And out of that pressure, 5 names were about to emerge. Eric Wright wasn't a musician, he was a drug dealer. By his early 20s, he'd built up serious money on the street, reportedly $250,000 at his peak. But Eric wanted out of that life before that life took him out of it permanently. So he did something almost nobody around him was doing. He started thinking like a businessman. He teamed up with music industry veteran Jerry Heller, and together in 1986, they founded a record label, Outta Compton. They called it Ruthless Records. Eric had a new name now too, Eazy-E. Here's the twist nobody saw coming. Eazy wasn't trying to be a rapper. He wanted to be the money behind the mic, the executive, not the performer. He had a song written for another artist, produced by a young DJ named Andre Young. That artist turned it down, so Andre, who the world would soon know as Dr. Dre, did something bold. He put Eazy behind the microphone himself and taught him how to rap, right there in the booth. The song was Boys in the Hood. Eazy's voice was raw, untrained, unpolished. It became a local hit anyway, and Eazy-E realized something in that moment that would define the next 5 years of his life. Authenticity sold better than polish ever could. With money and a label behind him, Eazy started pulling talent from across Compton. Dr. Dre came from a group called World Class Wrecking Crew, where he'd been perfecting beats behind the turntables. DJ Yella came from that same crew, ready to produce alongside him. Then there was a teenager with a notebook full of the sharpest, angriest, most vivid lyrics anyone in the label had heard. His name was O'Shea Jackson. The world would come to know him as Ice Cube. By 1987, they'd assembled a full crew: Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, DJ Yella, Ice Cube, and Arabian Prince. Soon, a fierce lyricist named Lorenzo Patterson, MC Ren, joined the ranks too. They gave themselves a name that was as blunt as their music: N.W.A, Niggas with Attitudes. Their first release, a compilation called N.W.A and the Posse, came and went with barely a ripple. Nobody was ready for what came next. In the summer and fall of 1988, N.W.A locked themselves in a studio in Torrance, California, and recorded an album that didn't ask for permission. They called their music reality rap, not a fantasy, not a boast, a police report from the inside. On January 25th, 1989, Straight Outta Compton hit the streets. There was no radio campaign behind it, stations across the country wouldn't touch it, and yet it spread anyway, until it cracked the Billboard Top 40 with almost no airplay at all. By that summer, it had gone platinum. It became the breakthrough gangster rap album that took the West Coast sound into the national mainstream. But one song on that record was about to turn a rap group into a national controversy. Track 2, 5 minutes and 43 seconds long. Its title left nothing to the imagination, looked at police.
Dre resigning. In the case of N.W.A. versus the police department, prosecuting attorneys are MC Ren, Ice Cube, and Eazy-E.
Wait a minute, hold it. Order in the court. Ice Cube, take the motherfucking stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help your black ass?
You goddamn right.
MC Ren, Ice Cube, and the DOC built the track around one blunt idea: flip the courtroom. Instead of the police prosecuting them, N.W.A. put the LAPD on trial. Every verse was a testimony, every bar, a piece of evidence. Ren remembers going into the booth that day with no idea what they were about to unleash. He had no idea how right and how wrong he was. Here's where the story turns. An assistant director of the FBI named Milt Alaric sent a letter directly to Priority Records. He never named the song outright. He didn't have to. Everyone knew exactly which track he meant. The letter cited 78 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty the year before and called recordings like N.W.A.'s Discouraging and Degrading to police across the country. Eazy-E's business partner, Jerry Heller, later admitted he was rattled enough to clear sensitive documents out of the Ruthless Records office just in case federal agents came knocking. But inside the group, the reaction was the opposite of fear. Eazy loved the letter, the DOC would later recall, because here's what the FBI didn't understand. You cannot silence 5 kids from Compton by threatening them with the same authority they're already rapping about. You can only prove their point for them. Priority Records leaked the letter to the press, and that single act of intimidation did something no marketing budget ever could. It turned an underground album into a national headline. Almost overnight, N.W.A. wasn't just a rap group anymore. They were a symbol. To millions of young black listeners across America, they were the first voice on the radio or off it, telling the truth about what daily life under aggressive policing actually felt like, decades before Ferguson, decades before the phrase Black Lives Matter existed. To law enforcement and much of mainstream America, they were something to be feared and banned. Concert promoters got calls from police departments warning them not to let the group perform "F the Police" live. In Detroit, officers told them directly, backstage, not to play it. They played it anyway. N.W.A. leaned into the chaos and gave themselves a new title, the world's most dangerous group. It wasn't just a marketing line, it was a shield. And underneath that shield, 5 friends from Compton were now selling more records than anyone in their neighborhood could have imagined. Money started flowing in, and money, as it always does, started asking questions nobody wanted to answer. Ice Cube had written most of the lyrics on Straight Outta Compton and Eazy's solo album, Eazy Does It. But when he looked at his royalty checks, the numbers didn't add up to the work he put in. He confronted Jerry Heller, he confronted Eazy. The answers didn't satisfy him. In December of 1989, Ice Cube walked away from N.W.A. entirely. The group's response wasn't silence, it was war, on wax. N.W.A. released an EP that publicly branded Cube a traitor, comparing him to Benedict Arnold, the most infamous defector in American history. Cube didn't stay quiet either. On his next solo album, he fired back with a track so pointed it became one of the most talked about diss records of its era. The group that once stood as one united front against the outside world was now turning its sharpest weapon, its own lyrics, against itself. And it was only the beginning of the unraveling. In 1991, N.W.A. released their second and final album, Niggas for Life. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. The following week, it hit number 1, the first explicit hardcore rap album to ever claim that spot. By every commercial measure, N.W.A. had never been bigger. But behind the scenes, the group Eazy-E built was quietly falling apart. Dr. Dre had grown just as frustrated with Ruthless Records and Jerry Heller as Ice Cube once had. He left to co-found a new label with a business partner named Suge Knight. That label's name was Death Row Records. With Dre gone, N.W.A. was finished. 4 years after Boys in the Hood first hit the streets, the group that had terrified the FBI simply stopped existing. What followed was ugly. Eazy-E and Dr. Dre traded diss records for years. each one more bitter than the last. Two men who had once built an empire together from nothing now treated each other like enemies. Then, in early 1995, everything changed.
Last week, the rap world was stunned to learn in a press conference held by his lawyer that Eazy-E had been admitted to Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles.
Eazy-E was hospitalized. Within days, the diagnosis became public: complications from AIDS.
Rapper Eazy-E has died in Los Angeles after a battle with AIDS. Eazy-E, whose real name was Eric White, was a member of the group N.W.A, which helped popularize harsh inner-city rap music. Wright only learned he had AIDS after being hospitalized last month because of some breathing problems. Wright was 31.
On March the 26th, 1995, Eazy-E died. He was 30 years old. The rivalries that had defined N.W.A.'s final years suddenly felt small next to what had actually been lost. Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, the two men who had feuded with Eazy the hardest, both spoke publicly of their regret.
I think Eazy's death and him writing that letter before he died grabbed a lot of people.
Unfortunately, it has to take somebody like Eazy, but hopefully this is a lesson to every young community to, protect yourself.
The group that had once called itself the world's most dangerous had lost the man who started it all. The hustler who once bet his own drug money on 5 kids from Compton nobody else believed in. For years, it looked like N.W.A.'s story would end there, in bitterness, in loss, in silence. Then, decades later, the world caught up to them. In 2015, the biopic Straight Outta Compton introduced their story to a generation that had never heard the original album. It became one of the highest grossing music biopics ever made. In April 2016, N.W.A, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, MC Ren, and DJ Yella, alongside the late Eazy-E, walked into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. A group once treated as a threat to national order was now enshrined as one of the most influential acts in American music history. And in 2020, when the killing of George Floyd sent millions into the streets in protest, one song surged back to the top of the charts. Streams of "F the Police" nearly quadrupled in a single week. 30 years after the FBI tried to silence it, that same track was still saying exactly what a new generation needed to hear. Compton, once a city defined by outsiders as nothing but violence and warning signs, had become something else entirely. The birthplace of a sound and a truth that changed music forever. 5 kids from Compton didn't just make it out. They made sure the whole world knew exactly where they came from. That's how 5 kids with nothing but a drum machine, a notebook, and a refusal to stay quiet forced an entire country to listen. If you want more real, deeply researched stories from the streets that shaped hip-hop, the rises, the betrayals, and the legends behind the music, hit subscribe on Hip Hop History Vault right now, because this is only the beginning of the story.